ready.
On today's episode of Buff in the Rough, we're going to talk to Mitch Gould about what it takes to win the World Championship. Let's welcome Mitch Gould to the program. Well, Mitch, how in the world are you?
I'm good, Sam. How are you?
Oh, I can't complain. I appreciate you taking time to spend with us today to talk a little bit about your story and the history of Up Kennels. And so,
yeah, absolutely.
Could we start out, maybe for those that don't know you that well, could we start out just spending a little time, just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe how you got started in hounds, and a little bit about the origin story of Up Kennels. How did that start? How long has it been around?
Well, I guess just start with me, I guess. I'm born and raised North Central West Virginia. Grew up in a hound family, My dad was a longtime coon hunter. Both grandparents had beagles or fox dogs. It's just being a houndsman is just something we just do, It's something near and dear to my heart. And I think for those of us that live that lifestyle with a houndsman, we get it, but it's hard to explain to people,
Mm-hmm.
I grew up coon hunting and
now, what kind of coon hounds did you have?
I don't even remember the first time going hunting with a dog.
Mm-hmm.
I was on my dad's back, and that's just been a way of life, here.
Well, what kind of coon hounds did you have? What breed?
We had walkers,
mm-hmm.
walker dogs.
And did you competition hunt any or pleasure hunt?
Yeah. My dad hunted seriously here local. He worked a lot, and we wasn't able to hunt maybe nationally, but hunted hard, hunted 4, 5, 6 nights a week, and I can remember, waiting up for him to get off the hoot owl shift, the night shift at the steel mill. I'd be sitting in his recliner waiting on him,
mm-hmm.
6, 7, 8 years old. And so, we hunted walker dogs. They were, if you got any coon hunters on here, probably have heard of night heat bred dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Nocturnal nailer, that was some of the breeding we competition in back in the day. I guess this would have been late 80s through the early 90s. It probably is when I remember those dogs the most.
Well, I'm going to tell you the truth. I know this is we're going to focus on beagles today, but one of the very nicest trim walkers I ever hunted with was directly out of Naylor. And one of my favorite stories, we went hunting one night. It was just pouring down the snow down here. And, down where I live, a little bit of snow makes everybody crazy. We just think the world's coming to an end. But he just treed tree after tree in the snow. I mean, it just looked so pretty as a picture. Big old mouth, just a good hound. That was one of the best trim walkers I've ever hunted with. But I know I'm getting off in a rabbit hole here.
Yeah, they were nice dogs for sure.
Mm-hmm.
They were deep and alone. Especially the night heat dogs, they were deep and alone before it was popular.
Yeah,
yeah, that's for sure. A lot of long walks, and I was always in shape for basketball or football season before it even got there. I can tell you that.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this: how did you switch over then from coon hounds to beagles?
Well, so growing up with some relatives and friends, so they had rabbit dogs. From time to time I'd get rabbits. I was familiar with beagles, but I was a coon hunter, and that's just kind of what I wanted, and I loved it. So when I was probably 15, 16, a friend of mine said, "Hey, let's go. They have these beagle trials up here. My dad works with a guy that runs this club. Let's go up there. They got beagle trial. I try one out. Yeah, I don't care. I'll go. I'm not at this point. I'm just going to go for something to do. I love hunting dogs, but I'm not thinking I'm going to want to actually get into it.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, and we went, and I thought it was pretty cool. To me, it was interesting that we were going to score dogs in the daylight.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I was introduced to Dale Prunty, and Dale and my dad had went back a good ways because they both coon hunted. So I kind of knew him from the coon clubs before he switched over to beagles. And we got to talking, and my dad's farm at the time, it was like the hot spot. There were so many rabbits there, and
Wow.
so they'll come out, and Dad, gave him permission to run dogs there at the farm. And first cast they took there, they had like 1,400 points. I mean,
oh my
man,
goodness.
You don't believe this spot, over here. And so Dale, he wanted to come and just run, once in a while, and so he would come run dogs, and I'd go with him, and one thing led to another. We started to become friends, and to make a long story short, next thing I know, I've got a big old house. And
funny how that happens.
Dale said I started to really like it. I was going to hunts with him, and there was a dog he called Klein's West Virginia Bess was her name.
Mm-hmm.
And Dale said, he said, why don't you just keep Bess at your house and run her? I said, I love that dog. She was a super hard hunting, really grubby hunting type dog.
Mm-hmm.
And she just had a huge heart. And I think we ended up, I can't remember if we won the eliminator with her or runner-up eliminator. I don't remember. But she won some hunts and made the finals at nationals. And, of course, back then, we didn't have a world hunt. The eliminator was kind of the world hunt back then. But so I ran Bess for a while, and Dale had a couple other dogs I would handle from time to time. And I'm just a kid, old country boy, and he's taking me all over the country. We're
mm-hmm.
going to Maryland and PA and just all over to Beagle trials, and that's kind of how that started. Dale took me under his wing and supplied me with dogs. I tell people all the time, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I had to struggle to find good dogs when I got into sport, like I know some people have. He set me up
mm-hmm.
with the proper foundation to build what we eventually built. And he eventually ended up giving me 3 dogs, and again, these were highly sought after dogs out of what would become the legendary Michael and Lulu cross. Big Jake, Raising Cane, and Dynamite were the 3 dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And Dale, he gave me those dogs, and I'll always be grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
And Jake ended up being a real special hound. He won the Challenge Series. He won some big hunts, and ended up being a fantastic reproducer for us. And that's kind of where we got our start with what you asked me, heat 'em up kennels. That would be where it started. With Big Jake, and
so
he kind of became the first dog we had that we started to really go out on our own.
Well, Mitch, date that
produce.
for me. I mean, how many years ago has that been? 10, 15, 20, 25, 30?
That would have been late 90s,
okay.
Early 2000s. Yeah. I know we started breeding Jake in the early 2000s, and he produced a dog called Heat 'em Up Kita, who is still our historical number 1 reproducer of Champion the Grand. She produced 30 dogs that titled. I think if you combine PP and hunting
mm-hmm.
beagle titles, I think she's second. But just as far as individual dogs that title, I think she's still number 1.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of where we started there with Jake, and then Kita was out of him, and then Kita was bred to Shenango Trigger, and that produced a lot of the dogs that what we're running today.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to trace it back, would go back to that cross.
So how did you get the name Heat 'em Up?
Well, it's like I would always, we'd be around dogs and people would say, man, they're really burning that one up,
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, man, and I liked night heat dogs.
I got you.
And, it just kind of one day I thought, oh, I like that. That's kind of catchy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we went with. And a couple friends of mine, Ben Hall and Chris Reynolds, kind of was there in the beginning. And, we started to produce some dogs, and Jake produced every single generation had produced at least one national champion between Jake and present day. The Heat 'em Up Sweet Tea Dog would be, let's see, she'd be a great granddaughter. Would be that fourth or fifth generation that would have won nationals.
So that was going to be a question of mine too. So being in this, 20-ish years with the Heat 'em Up name, so that's about 4 or 5 generations and into this breeding program. Is that fair to say? Okay.
Yep. And basically, through Jake to get to Kita, I tried to learn. I've always tried to be a sponge and just learn everything I could. Mm-hmm. Even today, anybody that says that or acts like they've got this thing figured out, you probably should run, because you should always be learning and growing in what you're trying, anything you're trying to do. And I learned early on through my dad and Dale that the key to a lot of what we're trying to accomplish as breeders is through females. And in my opinion, a lot of average or less females get bred. Mm-hmm. So what happens is a lot of times guys are trying to produce something that they're a long ways from actually getting, because they're starting out with what we'll call average. Mm-hmm. So I've tried to, from the get-go, only use the best females going forward, and tried to line up bitch lines. I believe, like I said, I really believe that's a key ingredient. When I bred the Shenango Trigger, he had never been bred before. And Bill McFarland was a friend of mine, and Trigger was a powerful young dog. And mm-hmm. the reason I bred the Trigger was not as much Trigger, is because his mother was one of the best rabbit dogs I had ever seen. And I wanted to put Shenango Star and Heat 'em Up Kita in the same pedigree. Mm-hmm. I believe that's a key ingredient, to consistency. So that's, that's kind of the short answer to a long story on that part, I guess.
Okay. No. I think that's fascinating. I love history. I love hearing what happened, not necessarily in the last few weeks, but the last, 20 years. That stuff's important. Yeah. I mean, how did you get here? It wasn't by accident. It was. It sounds like you put a lot of time, a lot of shoe time, boot time into it, walking around.
I want to say, like, from the late '90s through probably 2013, something like that. We were really got ate up with it. Mm-hmm. Around that time, I took a break from trials for a while, and my daughter was born, and mm-hmm. So it didn't go to a lot of trials there for a couple of years. But prior to that, we hit it pretty hard. Derek Bowen and Tim Bowen, when we started kind of get rolling there with the dogs out of Kita, they were on board and a real help to me. And nobody, I don't believe anybody accomplished anything really in this sport, especially on your own. You learn from other people, and I've had a lot of help. I'm not going to sit here and take a bunch of credit for everything this kennel's accomplished or this breeding program's accomplished. I've got good friends, and right now, you might have seen the picture T with Braden Neely. He's ran her a lot for me. Mm-hmm. Cody Rucker, Josh Ware. When I wasn't trialing, those guys, they took the dogs out of Kita and kept winning with them. And Derek had a dog called Heat 'em Up Black Phantom, mm-hmm. that's in the Hall of Fame, that he won a lot with. And Heat 'em Up Hellstorm was a dog that Josh and Cody had, and that they continued to promote. And I guess my point I'm saying is I don't want anybody to hear this and think that I'm trying to take credit for a bunch of stuff, because it's been a team effort.
It's the proverbial it takes a village sometimes, and certainly. Well, speaking of accomplishments, and I tried to do a little homework ahead of time, and I certainly was familiar with the Heat 'em Up name just from what little bit I've hunted in some of these UKC Hunting Beagle format hunts. Let me just run through a few. And I certainly didn't run through every small hunt that's ever been won by Heat 'em Up over a 20-year period. That's probably quite a few, but I tried to pick out some of the bigger ones. Well, that's and more focused on the last couple years. So tell me how accurate I am, and I'm trying. Fact check me here, Mitch, for fake news. I don't want any fake news on here.
No, we don't want that.
No, we don't want fake news. 2022. So this is last year. Dogs from Heat 'em Up Kennels won 2 of 5 divisions at nationals, and that included a 4th place champion. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think so.
The Eliminator, and again, these are all kind of the bigger hunts, the major hunts that I consider. The Eliminator, 1st, 2nd, 5th, and 6th places. The Junior Eliminator, the 1st, 3rd, and 4th place. The NHBA, and for those that may not know what that is, that's the National Hunting Beagle Association, overall winner and the 4th place. The World Championship, the 1st and 4th place. And another NHB sectional race here, just the race in general, 1st, 3rd, and 8th. Sounds like a busy year for 2022. I know that took a lot of work, and I can't imagine any one person doing that to you by yourself. So I appreciate you recognizing some of your folks that help you along the way. But 2023, I mean, this is a new year, really. A few months into it at the time we're taping this, and kind of year to date, UKC put together something fairly new, maybe 2 years into it, called the Clash of Champions, which is what I just call a good old-fashioned money hunt. And it's like a bracket type thing where you work your way through regions and get down to the finals. And so first place, $10,000, not bad, my friend. And then also third place with $3,000. So that's a big deal, and certainly again UKC Nationals won 2 of 5 divisions, and runner-up in the Grands, back-to-back UKC National Junior Champions, and I got to tell you, that's just the last year and a few months. And when I went back and tried to do a little research on some history, because it's not, I'm talking a lot about UKC stuff here, but also produced ARHA World Champions and 2 ARHA Hall of Fame hounds. And going back, because I love the old dogs. I mean, I'm a sucker for old dogs. But Kita Descendants winning the big hunts, and you talked about having that power in the females too. 2-time McVeigh, hunt winners, 3 national winners, a world runner-up, an Eliminator winner, NHBA Days winner, multiple point races, and 7 Hall of Fame dogs in 2 different registries, all out of Kita, that go back to Kita. That sounds pretty impressive. And then this is a stat that I had to do a little digging on too. Over 100 Grand Hunting Beagle champion and Hunting Beagle champions have been whelped at Heat 'em Up Kennels. So does that sound about right?
I appreciate that.
No. You should be proud of yourself and your team. A lot of what you
read there are kennel partners of mine that put in the work. Those 2 junior national titles, Jason Vandergriff. He ran T last year, and they had Natty cranking, had her right for this year's nationals. He deserves all the credit for that. And I wasn't able to go to the first day of nationals, so Braden Neely, he took T up there, and him and T had a great weekend. And so I just want to make sure that. That's noted. That's not all me there. And it's a team effort, and I feel humbled and blessed there for sure. That's been a good little run.
Yeah, you've had a good run, and it continues to be continued. So it's this kennel has been produced. It has an extremely impressive record when it comes to winning, and I mean winning at the highest level. So you obviously know what it takes to win, and I wanted to ask you to share a little about maybe some of the traits you look for in a hound that, when you're picking one to campaign, what catches your eye? I mean, what are you really looking for? Maybe the 2 or 3 or 4 kind of traits that are must-haves in that prospect
Sure.
that you have. And then on top of that, once you do pick them, how do you train them? And I'm not asking for you to give me away, all your secrets away here. But, how do you prep them? How do you get them ready for the hunts?
Okay. Well, on the selection part, I always say that, and we talk about this a lot, in-house, is identify the talent, put the time in the talent.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to know what you want. That's for starters. You have to know what you want. I had several guys, from time to time will ask me, what do you think of my dog? What do you think of my dog? And I really don't like to give an opinion on somebody else's dog, because my question back at them is always the same. What do you care what I think? It's your dog. Like, do you like your dog? And then what is your objective? Do you want to win 50 trials? What format?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to gun hunt the dog and that's good enough? Or it's all about, kind of where you want to be. And we've always wanted to have a dog that first and foremost has serious hunt.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Beagle breed, in my opinion, coming from coon dogs all those years, I think the Beagle breed as a whole lacks hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of dogs that you'll hear the term stay busy. To me, that's not hunting, So I've always been very picky about hunt. But to back up on that, the debate of kind of the chicken or the egg coming first type of debate, and you've heard this a lot in Beagles,
mm-hmm.
Does papers matter? Or is it always it's a trainer? That's a debate you've heard hundreds of times.
Oh, yeah.
And my input to that has always been, it all matters.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not in the dog, I can't get it out of the dog. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care who you are, how great of a trainer you think you are. If that dog doesn't have those predisposition traits that you can pull out of it, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I don't care if that dog has all that talent wound up inside of it. If it's not going to get ran and taken care of, and I'll say ran the right way or brought along the right way, doesn't matter how talented the dog
Mm-hmm.
is. So I think it comes down to everything matters, when it comes to selecting a cross, when it comes to selecting that hound that you're going to try to put the time in. So, when you go about it that way, you kind of try to be picky as you can, and everybody has deal breakers.
Sure.
What you're looking for, things you can live with, because what I have found for sure is there are no perfect Beagles, just like there's no perfect people. So, finding the things that you can live with and the things you can't.
Mm-hmm.
We've always looked for a dog, as I said, that has hard hunt. I want a dog, when I turn it loose, I want it gone. I wanted it off the path, and I want it to go find a rabbit. If I have to go find the rabbit, I don't need the dog.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always been number one, and probably 1A, 1B, probably. I want a dog. We get into this conversation a lot about speed, and we can have that conversation. But if a dog can't solo a rabbit, if it can't do it by itself, to me, it's not a complete rabbit dog.
Mm-hmm.
A Me Too dog can't live here. I can't deal with that. A dog that follows other dogs all over the place, or a dog that can't run its own rabbit. So those are some of the things I look for. I want a dog that's hard hitting. I want a dog that's running on the edge of being out of control, but not out of control,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. And when they get it, I want them to drive the bus for a while. I don't like a dog that takes the front but can't handle it and it's on the outside the whole race.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking for that either. So, I guess that probably answers that first part to your question.
Yes.
And then you asked me, what was the other question you asked?
Well, after you get those, how do you train them? And you mentioned soloing, and I know some people solo them a good bit, some people don't.
Oh, okay.
Are there any tricks to the trade on preparing that hound for competition?
Okay, so I'm a big solo guy, especially when they're young. We tend to solo start most of our boots, and I'll say though, growing up a coon hunter and growing up in the Beagle world with Dale was a huge proponent of solo time. So he drilled that into my head. My dad drilled that into my head. So I came into the sport with that in mind. And again, I touched on a minute ago, you're always learning and evolving and trying to learn from different people.
Oh, yeah.
And what I've found is these dogs are all different.
Mm-hmm.
They're all different nutritionally, things they need nutritionally, and they're all different in the kind of running regimen they need. Some need braced more, some might need packed more, so you're developing that dog. One of my favorite things about this sport is, each little dog is like their own little equation to be solved. How do I maximize, how do I just get every drip of potential out of this dog? So trying to figure that out, is my joy. So, I do brace, pack. It just depends on the dog, really. But at a young age, every dog here, in our kennel in general, we all solo quite a bit. We're getting a dog ready for a trial. We solo quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And again, when you're getting that dog ready for a trial, kind of moving on from the development, we're actually getting ready for a trial with this dog. There's some dogs that if you bang them the day before the trial, they're going to look better.
Yeah.
There's some dogs that you're going to solo all the way up to that trial. There's some dogs that need 2 days off before the trial. Mm-hmm. So I love that part, of trying to figure that out.
So there's no cookie cutter approach, no one size fits all. It's very different for each and every hound, and that's what that makes it more challenging. If it was easy, heck, anybody could do it, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of guys don't enjoy soloing because let's face it, it's not as exciting as maybe watching a pack run. Me personally, I enjoy the solo work because I'm really dialed in watching that dog. Mm-hmm. But guys that have asked me about soloing, I've always told them, I call it the 30-day challenge. Take any dog in your kennel, solo it for 30 times in a row. I don't mean necessarily you don't have to run it every day in a row, but 30 times out in a row by itself. Mm-hmm. And I almost can guarantee you that dog will show improvement in some part of the game, whether it's more independent jump ability, better check work. Something will improve in that dog. Some more than others, but they'll all show improvement in doing that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Some good nuggets there, some good wisdom. But I want to switch gears just a little because last year I actually had a hound qualified for the world, and I was watching the show, and this young lady brought in a hound, a little female hound. And I just thought she was striking. She just looked like a little foxhound. She was just a beautiful little dog. And I didn't know it was Tika at the time. I'm still kind of new at this. And then, I thought she was going to win the show. I thought she was that nice. And so I was rooting for her.
When Aubrey hears that'll make her die.
Yeah, she did a nice job too. But boy, there were some nice hounds in that final look by the judge. I felt sorry for the judge. That would have been a hard choice to make.
Yeah, absolutely.
But a lot of nice hounds there. But then Tika went on. She's not just pretty. She went out and won the whole thing, the world championship last year. And
yes, sir.
Could you tell us a little about preparing Tika? What was it like getting her ready for the hunt, and maybe a little bit about some of those casts you were in, because for folks that maybe don't know, it's an elimination style type event as well. And did you have any memorable cast or hounds that you saw that you were like, wow, that's a nice hound, Glad I got past them. Or not.
Well, I guess to start with, I would just say, my daughter being into these dogs with me has been by far the best part of this whole deal.
That's great to hear.
Clear back to when I started, there's nothing been better than having her with me, and we've got to the point where we call her our good luck charm. When she shows up, we seem to do well. So, having her with me a lot last year was really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We started out at the Eliminator, and Tika she'll tell you that's her dog, buddy. And she the winter before the last year's Eliminator, we decided we were going to trial Tika that year.
Mm-hmm.
I had held her out and waited for her to turn 2 to start trialing her. Really don't trial a lot of young dogs like we used to. Just try to get them mentally ready before we really start pushing them. But
mm-hmm.
but anyways, so some of my friends had seen Tika run here at the house, and they're like, "Man, you're not gonna put that dog on a hunt this year." I'm like, "No, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna just wait till next year." And kind of was kicking myself a little bit at the World Hunt previous to that I didn't. I was like, "Man, maybe I should have put her in there." But so we waited, and so Eliminator rolled around. That would have been her first field trial. Aubrey was excited, and the plan was for her to handle Tika, and she kind of got cold feet on me.
Oh.
So Dad had to handle her, and she went with me, of course. And that weekend, Tika's first hunt, she got top 10 Eliminator, and Aubrey was hooked, buddy.
Oh yeah,
she was hook, line, and sinker. That was pretty cool. My dog, she's proud of her dog, and she watched that bench show, and she's like, that's pretty cool. And Jason Vandergrift's wife, Angie, is obviously very successful in the shows, and they're friends of ours. And she's watching Angie win these shows, so her and Angie became friends, and Angie kind of, took her under her wing and showed her some tips and tricks on the bench, and even let Aubrey show some of her dogs. Mm-hmm. Aubrey got to win some hunts on. She won. She hunted, or she showed Angie's dog in this year's Eliminator. So Angie's been a huge part of Aubrey in showing dogs, and making her
she has so many beautiful hounds too.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, just a great all-around person. So anyways, that's kind of how the year started, and so then right after that hunt, she's like, "Well, Dad, when's the next big hunt? When are we going next big hunt?" And she plays basketball, and so we can't go to every weekend, but we were trying to go to hunts. And I said, "Well, NHBA days would be the next big 5 hunt in Waynesburg." And she said, "Yeah, I want to go. I said, "All right, well, we'll go." And that format's a little different. It's a long weekend if you're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
It's multiple rounds, and then you have the runoff on Sunday. So we went to NHBA days, and that little girl, she was a trooper, buddy. She was out there every round with me. Tika ended up hunting 4 rounds, winning 3 of them, and making the finals. Her and Superstar, Superstar were in the finals, and Aubrey, she's just mesmerized by this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
That her dog's doing so well, and I'll never forget when that cast is over. She it was a real steep hill, so she stayed at the truck with Rick Smith and a couple other spectators down there, and I come up over the hump, and she runs over. There's like a hill there, and she comes running over to it. And she's like, "Dad, how'd Tika do? Did she win? And I looked at her and said, "She won, baby. She jumped and squealed. How little girls do. Oh man, she was so pumped, and just everybody coming over and congratulating her. And,
Mm-hmm.
I got a great picture right then and there of her in that winner's pack. But, that's been probably the best part is just how kind everybody's been to her.
Yeah.
At these UKC events.
You can meet so many good people at these
what's
events.
that?
You meet so many good people at these events.
Oh my!
Yeah, it's a good group.
Yeah, John Hill. She hung with John Hill a couple of times, and man, he just makes it so fun. She was nervous about handling her first dog. She never had handled a dog. She finally got the courage to handle Tika at the state hunt, and she drew John, and John just helped her, and she ended up. Her and Tika won the cast, and
wow.
So I guess I'm telling you this just kind of leading up to the World Hunt. You said you seen her showing. Well, that's kind of how I ordered a bench from him, and she started working her on the bench, and she's a pretty good looking dog. So I thought maybe she could win a bench load or whatever. But I didn't think maybe she would go as far as she did, and the judge kept calling her name, and the smile on her face just at that point in World Hunt just didn't really even matter to me. It was just all about her.
And that's a wrap for part 1 of our interview with Mitch Gould of Up Kennels. And I hope you join us next time where we pick up at the point where we just left off with this great quote. At that point, the World Hunt just didn't really matter to me. Your feedback matters. So for the first 25 people that send in a topic that they would like to hear more about, or perhaps it's a person you want to hear from, we'll put your name into a raffle for a $25 gift card to Academy Sports. We'll announce that winner on our July 1st podcast. So send those comments to buffintherough@gmail.com. And once again, thank you for listening.